100 not out is a great knock, whatever game you're in. But given the enormous changes in rural publishing since 1911, The Land newspaper's centenary is all the more remarkable. It's now part of the Fairfax Media stable, which puts almost as much effort getting its stories online as it does getting them printed on paper. The challenge for The Land and specialist rural papers like it is not only convincing rusted-on readers to embrace the new technology, but being prepared to pay for it.
It's about providing vital information for debate, information for running farm businesses, and also entertainment.
I think it's been extremely important. In many ways it's regarded as the Bible of the bush in New South Wales.
I think we have to keep publishing a paper that farmers are proud of and proud to call their own.
Through war and peace, boom and bust, drought and flooding rain, The Land has been a constant source of information and entertainment to country people in New South Wales.
We're only here for a short time, a short part of the land's history, and like farmers we want to be a good steward of the land. And if at the end of the day we can pass it on to the next generation in as good a condition, then we've done our job.
Sally White is the paper's first female editor, but she's not big on accolades, just producing a paper that honours a history of high standards.
Oh, look, I think it's, it's great, but I think it's more of an honour to be one of only 15 people to edit The Land in 100 years.
So just
and I think it's probably like any job in ag these days, if you're male or female, it doesn't really matter as long as you can do the job.
100 years, it's a significant milestone. Why do you think The Land has stood the test of time?
I think because it's still relevant. I think we still have that unique package of news and analysis and markets, and those are all important on-farm stories. I think it's because farmers are really hungry for information. We look back at what the founders talked about, and they wanted to build a paper that was for the country, belonged to the country, and was written for them. And I think as long as we keep fulfilling that goal, they'll keep buying it.
The Land has closely followed the trends of Australian agriculture, reporting the changing fortunes of the trade.
The Land's reflected every boom that's come along. So in the 50s, the Land was very much into the wool industry because the wool industry was booming then. In the 60s, the wheat industry was taking over from the wool industry, so we were right into the wheat industry. In recent times, it's been lamb and beef, so the Land's probably had more emphasis on livestock than grain, I guess. It's reflected what's been popular in the bush all the time.
Former editor Vernon Graham went back through a century of archives to write the history of The Land. The paper started life in January 1911 with a clear mission: to represent the man on the land.
In the early days, the Land was very much a paper that was the mouthpiece of the Farmers and Settlers Association. And the Farmers and Settlers Association was really fighting with governments, particularly Labor governments, and fighting to get a better deal for small farmers, small wheat growers, the so-called cockies. And so the Land was very strident in its attacks on the Sydney press and the Melbourne press. Anyone they saw that was putting up hurdles, obstacles, or trying to harm those small cockies.
It's been there for a long time, and a lot of things have happened. In fact, the birth of farm organisations really started about 1890, so we've had a long relationship with the Land as a communicating arm for us, as well as obviously for the journal itself. And it's captured a lot of history, which is great.
The nature of farming may have changed over the past century, but The Land is still fighting for farmers to be heard. Nowadays, the big threats are not just from governments.
Well, not directly from politicians, more from lobby groups. The rise of the environmental movements, and they've sought to put more and more red tape on farmers and what they do on their farms.
there's a lot more scrutiny now of farming practices and food production than ever before. And I think farming's standing up to that, but there's certainly a lot more interest, and there is an increasing disconnect between the city and the country. You don't have city people with country cousins anymore who innately understand where their milk comes from and where their beef comes from. And so if they hear something and don't quite understand it, I think it's created a lot of challenges for ag to explain what they're actually doing and that they are farming sustainably.
For many readers, though, the paper captures the appeal of country life, and French-born photographer Michael Petey has been doing just that for 31 years.
It's what you call a perfect job, because especially for somebody who was born overseas and came to this country, my job allows me to see the country and meet people. It's probably easier for me today than it was 30 years ago, because I don't come from a farming background at all. So I had no idea what I was doing. But I knew the difference between a bull and a sheep, but that was just about it. I had no idea about breeds, and but you learn as you go.
According to Grant Cochrane, the chief executive for agricultural publishing at Fairfax Media, the paper's focus on business and commerce is also vital to its ongoing success.
There's so much to be gleaned from whether it's classifieds or property advertising in terms of making decisions about when someone was to market a property, when someone was to market stock. All of those sorts of things are vital to our readers' livelihoods. We try and have stories that have a commercial bent to them, so that help people improve their gross margins, improve their profitability, and basically endure as farmers.
But just as farming is facing challenges like corporatisation and an ageing workforce, the land must move with the times. Newspaper circulations are falling, and a national broadband network will bring new pressures to compete in an online environment.
Quite positively for niche publications, and that includes rural titles like The Land, there is a stronger renaissance resistance coming through, and that's been the case with The Land. And I think whilst we acknowledge the fact that we're more a business journal in a lot of ways than a mass distribution newspaper, but yes, there will be future pressures, and that's where things, whatever the platform is, whether it's print, mobile, online, quality will set us apart from all other providers of rural information to ensure that we have a viable future. So investment in editorial, investment in news gathering, investment in market research, all of those sorts of things that don't come at a small cost are vital to the future of The Land.